Welcome to this explainer. I'm so thrilled you're here, because today we're going to dive right into a topic that almost every single parent or caregiver faces at some point, yet somehow it still manages to catch us completely off guard. We're talking about separation anxiety. If you've ever felt just absolutely depleted by a tearful goodbye, or if you've ever second-guessed your parenting because your child absolutely panics the second you step out of sight, well, I want you to take a deep breath. We're going to demystify this whole universal challenge. By the end of this explainer, you'll have a complete developmental roadmap to understand exactly what's going on in your child's brain from infancy all the way through the teenage years. Okay, let's dive into this.
It's literally the ultimate question, isn't it? Why won't my child just let me leave the room? It's this exhausting, heart-wrenching worry that can honestly make you feel kind of trapped in your own home. You try to sneak to the bathroom for 2 seconds or drop them off at school, and suddenly it's a 5-alarm crisis. I really want to validate that experience right now. It is incredibly stressful. But before you blame yourself or assume you've done something wrong, we're going to pivot straight to the science. Because what's actually fascinating here is that this clinging behavior isn't a parenting failure at all. No way.
So, here's our developmental roadmap for today. We've got 1. The roots of separation anxiety. 2. Early years for infants and toddlers. 3. School transitions. 4. The teen years. 5. Normal versus disorder. And 6. The parent's toolkit.
Section 1. The roots of separation anxiety. To really grasp the evolutionary origins of this anxiety, we have to look at attachment theory, which was developed by psychiatrist John Bowlby. Basically, human beings are biologically programmed to forge strong emotional bonds with our caregivers. Why? Well, because human babies are born incredibly vulnerable. They can't run, they can't hide, they can't forage for food. So, evolutionarily speaking, you, the caregiver, are their literal shield against a really dangerous world. They are hardwired to stay close to you to survive. When they cry as you leave, their brain is just sounding this ancient survival alarm. And that brings us to Bowlby's core concept, the secure base. A secure base allows a child to safely explore the world, fully knowing they have a safe haven to retreat to. Think of it like a launch pad. When the world gets a little too scary, they return to you to co-regulate their fears. You aren't just their parent, you're their emotional anchor. When we understand that, honestly, those clinging hands make a whole lot more sense.
Section 2. Early years. Infants and toddlers. Okay, so the absolutely crucial thing here is understanding the timeline. Take a look at the 6-month mark. This is when babies develop object permanence, which is just the realization that things still exist even when they can't see them. Before this, seeing is believing. Out of sight is quite literally out of mind, which is exactly why peekaboo is basically magic to a newborn. But once they actually know you still exist when you leave the room, goodbyes become terrifying. This causes anxiety to hit a peak around 9 to 14 months. It usually flares up again around 18 months, before finally receding around age 3 as they gain more autonomy and trust that you will, in fact, come back.
Now get this, there's a really fascinating toddler paradox at play here. You'd probably think that as a toddler learns to walk and talk, their growing independence would make them way less clingy, right? Well, actually, scratch that, it increases their clinginess. Because toddlers are developing this whole new awareness of time and space, they know you're gone, and their new physical abilities mean they can protest your exit much more loudly and forcefully. So if your fiercely independent toddler suddenly refuses to let you go to work, it's actually a sign of their cognitive growth.
Section 3. School transitions and resurfacing fears.
You know, any major life transition can temporarily bring those normal separation fears roaring right back. Think about a child entering kindergarten around age 4 or 5, or maybe suddenly refusing to get on the school bus, or crying at summer camp. Even moving up to middle school or leaving for college much later on can be massive triggers. If your 8-year-old suddenly has a total meltdown at daycare drop-off after being totally fine for years, don't panic. It's a developmentally normal resurgence triggered by stress or change.
Section 4. The teen years. Now in teens, the symptoms mature right along with them. An anxious teenager probably isn't going to cling to your leg crying at the front door. Instead, the fear kind of morphs. It often shows up as persistent school refusal, or what we call somatic complaints. These are those mysterious headaches, stomach aches, or nausea that magically only seem to appear on Monday mornings before school. They might suddenly refuse to go to social events or have these intense, pervasive worries about a car crash or a natural disaster harming your family while they're away.
Section 5. Normal milestone or anxiety disorder.
So how do we tell the difference? Well, normal anxiety is transient. The child might cry when you drop them at school, but 10 minutes later, they're playing with blocks and laughing. They eventually settle. Separation anxiety disorder, on the other hand, is defined by being persistent. We're talking lasting for more than 4 weeks in kids. The distress is profoundly excessive, totally out of proportion to the child's age, and it causes extreme impairment. If it's ruining their ability to go to school, sleep, or just function in daily life, those are the real red flags of the disorder.
And to really put a fine point on that impairment, 75%. That's the percentage of children suffering from SAD who exhibit school refusal behaviors. If you're having a daily, exhausting battle just to pry your child out of the car in the school drop-off line, I want you to hear this number and know for sure that you are dealing with a known, documented clinical condition. It is not a discipline problem, it's an anxiety problem.
But hey, here is the really good news. SAD affects about 4% of children, which actually makes it the most common childhood anxiety disorder. But that also means if your child is diagnosed with this, researchers and therapists know exactly what it is. You are not alone, and even more importantly, it is highly, highly treatable.
Section 6. The Parent's Toolkit. For everyday anxiety, we lean on attachment-based routines. Predictability is absolutely your best friend here. Develop a quick, consistent goodbye routine. If you're going somewhere new, introduce the place together first so you act as that secure base we talked about. And please don't underestimate comfort objects. A favorite blanket, a family photo tucked in their backpack, or even drawing a little matching heart on both of your hands acts as this incredible psychological bridge. It reminds them that your connection remains intact even when you aren't physically in the room. And above all, listen empathically, but stay calm. You have to model the calm that you want them to feel.
Now, if the anxiety has progressed to a clinical disorder, we turn to the ultimate tool, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. It's the gold standard psychotherapy for childhood anxiety. In fact, it boasts the strongest evidence base of any psychological intervention for youth. It targets the interplay between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to actually rewire their fear response. It's a real game changer.
Let's see how CBT builds these skills step by step. It always starts with psychoeducation, teaching the child what fear actually is physically, so they aren't afraid of the feeling itself. Then comes cognitive restructuring. This teaches them to catch those catastrophic thoughts, like my mom's going to get in a car crash, and replace them with realistic ones. Third is exposure, which is basically just gradual, brave practice facing the fear. And finally, skills training, like deep breathing. What this whole shebang does is transform a child from a passive victim of their anxiety into an active, brave participant in conquering it.
And what's so brilliant about this is how these solutions dynamically scale with your child's development. I mean, you aren't going to sit down and do abstract cognitive restructuring with a 3-year-old, right? For a toddler, CBT is mostly parent-led through play and modeling. For early school kids, it's all about guided brave practice with concrete rewards, like sticker charts. But by the time they're teenagers, they can handle metacognitive thought challenging, literally thinking about their own thinking and doing self-guided exposure. The intervention just matures right alongside your kid.
Which brings us to our final takeaway. The secure base is the foundation of a secure attachment, enabling children to explore and learn with confidence. So, considering everything we've learned today about how their brains are wired, I want to leave you with this thought. Instead of viewing every tearful goodbye as a stressful crisis, what if you started viewing it as a vital, necessary opportunity? What if your child's next tearful goodbye isn't a setback at all, but the exact moment they learn just how brave they can really be?